Welcome to another episode of the Grow Wisely podcast. I'm Nick Parker, your host, and today we're going to be answering questions I hear from franchise owners across the country. Whether you run one location or several, the challenges are similar. Today's Q&A breaks down the questions that actually determine profitability, retention, and scale in franchised businesses. So let's just hop right into it. First question we got are, what are the fastest ways for a franchise owner to increase revenue without adding a second location? Okay, this is a really good question. And I noticed the word franchise in there. So franchises will typically dictate your pricing on your whatever you're selling. So you'll have fixed pricing, so you can't just go and raise your prices because you'll have to follow your franchise agreement on pricing, and I know that's typically set by corporate. So with that being said, you can't raise your price. So what can you do if you're not going to open a second location or raise your prices? Well, then you got to sell more, right? So if you're going to sell more, or you can become more profitable by cutting expenses, but there's only so much you can cut, and typically most franchises are running pretty lean to begin with. So you have to sell more. So how do you sell more? Well, you got to look at number one, what is your primary lead gen sources? You should have multiple channels, but what is your main lead source channel? How are you getting leads? And number two, how much are you spending to do that? And can you increase that spend to increase volume, to increase production on lead flow, and then therefore convert into more sales? And then number three, you can actually increase your point of sale conversions, right? So if you're getting lots of leads, you're getting lots of opportunities, but you're not converting those opportunities, then you've got pretty much a lot of missed opportunity. So, all right, second question. At what point should I stop doing everything myself and start building a real team? That is such a good question. I'll never forget when I had, this is decades ago, my first business. I was literally doing everything. I was working 100 hours a week. I was so stressed out. I wasn't sleeping. And that was not fun. That is not sustainable. You can't do that. It's not possible. So I always tell business owners to go in with the mindset of getting yourself out of things as quickly as possible. Obviously, it depends on what your financial situation looks like, but you need to buy your time back. Like Dan Martell has a great book on buy back your time. You need to buy your time back over time, more and more and more, to earn your freedom, so that you can focus on the bigger levers of the business, because somebody has to focus on the bigger levers of the business. Otherwise, the ship is going to crash, right? So what you want to do is at one point is like figure out what's occupying most of your time and then hire for that first. If it's something you can delegate and it's occupying most of your time, then hire for that first. Get that off your plate, open up your schedule so you can focus on other more important things like marketing or sales, and leading your team and business development, right? All right, next question. How do I know whether my growth problem is marketing, operations, or leadership? I have to think about that one. So whether it's marketing, ops, or leadership. Well, I can tell you if it's leadership. There's a good leadership quote that if you turn around and nobody's following, you're not really a leader. And so leadership could be an issue if you've got high turnover and your team's not really sticking around long. You're having to constantly rehire people. That could be a leadership issue. People aren't showing up to work. People are not doing great work. Those could be leadership issues. If it's an operational issue, that means things are slipping through the cracks. Things aren't working well, like leads are slipping through the cracks. Clients, billing, different things are starting to fall through the cracks. Things are getting overlooked. You're having lots of customer service based issues or complaints. That could be operational type issues. And then if it's marketing, lead flow, right? Lead flow, lack of inbound traffic, lack of growth, that would be a marketing problem. And I guess that's how you would probably diagnose that. Hey, real quick, if you're getting some value out of this, hit that subscribe button, like and share, drop a comment, and let's get back to it. All right, next question. What KPIs should I actually be tracking weekly to grow smarter and not just harder? Okay, good question. So for those of you that may not know what a KPI is, it's a key performance indicator. And KPIs are basically how you oversee the data of your business. You oversee the analytics, you oversee the data, you oversee the information that is telling you how the business is doing. So obviously your top KPI is going to be sales. So number one is you got to track your sales. Like, what do your sales look like? How many new sales were made? And then secondly, you got to track attrition. How many cancellations? What is the, are they buying again? Those kind of things. So you want to track those two as your primary. Other KPIs that are going to be important is like cost per lead, show rate, booking rates, conversion rates at the point of sale would be good marketing KPIs that you want to track, because that will help you create consistency in growing your business over time. And those would be pretty good. So focus on sales, and then everything else flows out of that. All right, next question. What do we got? How do I scale while still following the franchise system and not breaking brand rules? Oh boy. Okay, so that's a loaded question. A lot of franchises do have brand rules when it comes to marketing, what you can and cannot post, what you're allowed to put on your social pages, what you're not allowed to do that. They do that because they're trying to protect the brand. It's kind of like what a homeowners association is in a neighborhood. So homeowners associations make sure that the value of the neighborhood stays up, because you don't have pink flamingos and broken down RVs and every grass growing 10 feet tall in the front yards, which devalues the home prices in that neighborhood. And that's how franchises kind of view their brand rules, because they don't want to devalue the brand on a national level, and they want to keep their brand equity at a local level. So how do you scale? Well, you bought a franchise for a reason. You got to run the system. A lot of franchisees just don't run the system well. You need to actually run the system that they gave you. It's kind of, for a lack of a better word, sometimes business in a box, if you will. And you got to run the system, and you just got to pour more gas on that fire. So you got to really accelerate the system they gave you and just push it as hard as you possibly can to grow it. Good question. That was a tough one. All right, next question. We're talking marketing here. Which marketing channels work best right now for franchise owners, and which ones are overrated? Okay. So not too sure about overrated. I can give you kind of what's not working as well right now. I wouldn't call them overrated. In the right situation, they'd be good. But what's working really good right now, especially for local franchise sales? Meta. Why? Because Meta is demand generation. Okay. Where Google search is important, and it's good. You should have Google search. But you're waiting to fulfill demand, and you're waiting to meet demand when it arises. So it's much slower. And lead quality is obviously pretty good. So therefore you pay much higher cost per lead, and it's going to trickle in compared to Meta, where you're doing Instagram, Facebook advertising, and you're driving demand. You're actually creating demand that did not exist prior, right? So you're getting in front of users and people who don't even have you on their radar, and you're creating an itch that they need to scratch. And then they are like, you know what? Now I am interested, and I wasn't interested 5 minutes ago. Now I want to try it. And then they try it, and then they buy it. So I would say Meta would be your go-to. As far as other channels, TikTok is only good right now if you have a national brand or a regional brand. And the reason I say that is because TikTok's targeting works by Nielsen DMAs, designated market areas, like your radio, television, and broadcast markets. Really regional, really wide, lots and lots of people in that area. It's not like Meta, where you can target a 1 to 5 mile radius or zip codes and get super granular. So I would say only run TikTok ads if you have a regional brand or a national brand or an online brand. Okay, next question. How much should I realistically be spending on my marketing at my stage of growth? Okay, so I don't know what stage of growth you're in, so we'll just assume some different stages here. I'm gonna say this in like 3 stages. You got pre-sale, which is opening a new location before you open. You've got your grand opening period, which your grand opening period is typically the first several months of opening. And then you have working into maturity, which is probably after 4 to 6 months, because that's when attrition kicks in, and then you have maturity, and then you want to keep top of funnel full. So with those 3 stages in mind, let's think about that. How much should you realistically spend? The answer is as much as you possibly can with what your market will bear, and your market will probably bear more than you can spend. So in the initial stages during pre-sale, we see a lot of people underspending, especially during grand opening. That is when you pour the gas on the fire. You're never gonna grow faster ever in the history of your business, unless some weird random thing happens, than grand opening on your brand new business. So what I would say is spend a good amount of money during your pre-opening, your pre-sale. Your highest level of money would be spent during your first 2 months of opening. And then after that, you can go to like a high level maintenance mode. I'll give you some real numbers. What do we typically see? So like if you're a studio under 2,000-3,000 square feet, those studios are typically spending on the bottom end anywhere from $1,500 a month in ad spend all the way up to like $4,000 or $5,000 a month. If you're a big box gym, big box gyms will spend anywhere from like $2,500 to $10,000 a month, sometimes more, depending if they have multiple locations. If you're really small, like mom and pop shop, family owned and operated, and you're really running lean, they're going to spend maybe $1,500 a month or slightly less, $1,000 a month, which is pretty lean, but it can still get the job done. But underneath that, you're getting really lean and you really need to be spending more. So I would say those 3 stages, think about it that way. Pre-sale, go pretty heavy. Grand opening, the heaviest you can possibly go on spend. And then maturity after about 4 to 6 months. And from that point on, always be investing in your marketing. Okay. All right, next question. How do I get consistent leads without relying on discounts or promotions? Ooh, actually, we hear this one a lot because especially with like franchise restrictions, a lot of franchises will have restrictions on what offers you can actually run for lead generation. So with that being said, the way that you can do it without discounts or promotions like, hey, join now for $1 or zero enrollment or 50% off or something like that, is you want to get people to try before they buy. So trials, you can do a paid introductory trial or you can do a free introductory trial. But either way, you want people to come in and try it. If you have something you believe in, it's a great experience and you have a high conversion rate at the point of sale because you know what you're delivering is a great experience, then what you want to do is make sure you're getting as many people as you can on some sort of trial or introductory pass. Another opportunity there is like class passes or something like that. So think about it that way. You don't always have to discount, but you know what? I will say this. Let me feed you some thoughts on this. There are times of the year, especially if you're like a membership-based business, there's times of the year when you do want to run what we call high-intent join-based offers, where you're actually running a promotion on the actual membership itself. But you don't want to do that all year. You want to do it when you're swimming with the current, okay? So for example, you've got Q1 of every year, January through February, March, and then you have somewhere around Q3, Q4, which is like the back to school time frame, which is August, September, October. People buy memberships at a higher clip during those periods because of the rhythm of kids going back to school. And so it makes sense from a time commitment standpoint. So with that being said, you want to run your best join-based, higher intent-based offers during those times. And then throughout the rest of the year, you want to run some sort of trial, or you can run a hybrid approach where you run both throughout the year. So you're capturing different people at different places in the buying cycle because not everyone's ready to buy. And so if you're always running that bottom 3% offer where it's like, hey, get a discount on our membership. Well, what if they don't want your membership? They need to try it first. They need to experience it. They know nothing about it. So you want to run free or intro, paid intro, and then you want to run some sort of promotional offer as well. But if you don't want to, at least run the free or the trial. So anyway, I hope that helps. This has been awesome. Thank you guys for your questions. Thank you for the submitting your commonly asked questions. We've heard a lot of these over and over again. I hope those helped. If you need more information, feel free to reach out, DM me, and I'd love to help you. And if you're interested in diving deeper, check out this next video. You'll love it.